I gave an alien a ride home on Highway 66, and what he told me about God, about reality, about everything we've been taught since birth, it didn't just change my life. It shattered it completely. And I'm warning you right now, what you're about to hear will do the same to you. Because the being that sat in my passenger seat that night, the one that looked almost human but wasn't, not even close, he showed me something that churches have buried for 2,000 years, something that governments don't want you to know, something that would make you realize you have more power than you've ever been told. And once you see it, once you really understand it, there's no going back to the comfortable lies. My name is Sarah Chen. I'm 42 years old, divorced, working as an accountant in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm nobody special. I'm not religious. I'm not spiritual. I'm just a woman who was driving home late one night and made a decision that changed everything. Before I tell you exactly what happened, I need you to understand something. What you're about to hear has been kept from humanity for thousands of years, and I need to warn you, once you understand this truth, your entire view of reality will shatter. This isn't comfortable. This will challenge everything the church, the government, and society told you was real. But if you're tired of the lies, if you're ready to see what's really happening, you need to subscribe and turn on notifications right now, because the story you're about to witness will expose a truth that powerful people don't want you to know. There's no going back after this. And what I learned that night, driving through the Arizona desert with something that wasn't human sitting next to me, will prove to you that everything, absolutely everything you believe about God, about Jesus, about your own power, has been a carefully constructed illusion. So here's how it began. It was 2:47 in the morning on a Tuesday in late September. I remember the exact time because I kept checking my phone, trying to stay awake. I'd been working late, finishing tax returns for a client who waited until the last possible second, as they always do. The office was in Flagstaff, and I lived in Phoenix, which meant a 2.5-hour drive through mostly empty desert on Highway 66. I'd made this drive 100 times. Usually, I'd see maybe 5 other cars the whole way. Truckers mostly, the occasional lost tourist. But that night, the road was completely empty. Just me, the hum of my 10-year-old Honda Accord, and the endless stretch of asphalt cutting through the darkness. I wasn't thinking about anything profound. I was thinking about my daughter Emily, who hadn't returned my last 3 calls. I was thinking about the bills piling up on my kitchen counter. I was thinking about how my ex-husband David had somehow managed to get the house, the savings, and apparently our daughter's loyalty in the divorce. I was thinking about how, at 42, I was starting over with nothing, living in a cramped apartment, working myself to exhaustion just to stay afloat. These were the thoughts running through my mind when I saw him, or it, the figure standing on the side of the road. At first, I thought it was a trick of the headlights, maybe a cactus, maybe a road sign. But as I got closer, I could see it was definitely a person, tall, thin, wearing what looked like a dark jacket or coat, just standing there, completely still, about 20 feet off the shoulder of the highway. No car nearby, no broken down vehicle, no emergency lights, just a solitary figure in the middle of nowhere at almost 3 in the morning. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to keep driving. I'm a woman alone on a deserted highway in the middle of the night. This is exactly the scenario they warn you about. This is how people end up on true crime podcasts. But something made me slow down, Maybe it was the accountant in me, the part that always follows rules, always does the responsible thing. Maybe it was because I'd been thinking about Emily, and I'd want someone to stop if she were stranded somewhere. Or maybe, and this is what I think now, maybe I was supposed to stop. Maybe this was always going to happen. I pulled over about 30 feet past the figure. My hands were shaking as I shifted into park. I left the engine running. I kept my foot near the gas pedal, and I rolled down the passenger window just a few inches. Through my rearview mirror, I watched the figure start walking toward my car, and that's when I noticed the first strange thing. The way it moved. It wasn't quite right. The gait was too smooth, too fluid, like someone walking on a moving sidewalk, gliding more than stepping. My heart started pounding harder. I reached for my phone, ready to call 911 if I needed to. The figure reached my passenger door and bent down to look through the window. And that's when I saw his face, or what I thought was his face. It was dark, the only light coming from my dashboard and the faint glow of the stars overhead. But even in that dim light, I could see enough. The proportions were almost right. 2 eyes, nose, mouth, everything in approximately the right place. But something was off. The eyes were slightly too large. The distance between them was slightly too wide. The skin had a smoothness to it that didn't look quite natural, almost like it was made of something other than flesh. "Do you need help?" I called out, my voice sounding much braver than I felt. The figure tilted its head, studying me. It didn't answer right away. It just stared, and I felt like I was being scanned, analyzed, measured. "Are you broken down?" I tried again. "Do you need me to call someone?" Finally, it spoke. The voice was wrong, too. Too even, too measured, like someone doing a very good impression of a human voice, but missing some essential quality that makes speech natural. "I need transportation," it said. "My vehicle is non-functional. I need to reach a specific location approximately 40 miles from here." I should have driven away right then. Everything about this was wrong. But there was something about the voice, something underneath the strangeness, that didn't sound threatening. It sounded tired. It sounded lost. And against every ounce of common sense I possessed, I heard myself say, "Get in." The figure opened the door and folded itself into my passenger seat. And as the dome light came on for those few seconds, I saw it clearly. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that whatever was sitting next to me wasn't human. The skin was the first thing that confirmed my terror. In the brief moment of dome light, I'd seen that it wasn't quite skin at all. It had a faint grayish tint, and it was too smooth, too perfect, like porcelain or polished stone. No pores, no imperfections, no 5 o'clock shadow or laugh lines or any of the tiny details that make a face human. And the eyes. Dear God, the eyes. They were dark, almost completely black, with just the faintest reflection of light that made them look wet, like pools of ink. They didn't blink. Not once since getting into the car. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. My foot hovered over the gas pedal, my entire body rigid with the instinct to flee. But flee where? We were in the middle of nowhere, and this thing, whatever it was sitting less than 2 feet away from me in an enclosed space. "Where exactly do you need to go?" I managed to ask, my voice coming out as barely more than a whisper. The being turned its head to look at me, and the movement was too precise, too mechanical, like a camera on a tripod rotating to a new position. "Continue on this highway for 37.4 miles. There will be a dirt road on the left, unmarked." I will indicate when we reach it. 37.4 miles. Who talks like that? I pulled back onto the highway, my hands shaking so badly I had trouble keeping the car steady. I tried to focus on the road, on the white lines illuminated by my headlights, on anything except the presence next to me. But I could feel it. I could feel those eyes watching me, studying me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. "So," I said, desperate to fill the suffocating silence with something, anything normal. "Car broke down, huh? That's rough. Especially out here. No cell service or anything." The being didn't respond immediately. It just kept staring at me. Then, finally, "Yes. Mechanical failure. Unexpected." The conversation died there. I tried again. "I'm Sarah, by the way. Sarah Chen." Nothing. No response. No polite introduction in return, just that unblinking stare. "Do you have a name?" I pressed, hearing the slight hysteria creeping into my voice. "Designation would not translate meaningfully into your language. Your language. Not English. Not even the English language. Your language. As if it spoke dozens, hundreds. And English was just one insignificant option among many. I felt my breathing getting faster, shallower. My mind was racing through possibilities, each more insane than the last. Some kind of government experiment. A person with a severe medical condition. A very elaborate prank. But none of those explanations fit what I was seeing, what I was feeling. Because there was something else. Something I couldn't quite name. The air in the car felt different, charged, like the atmosphere before a lightning storm. I glanced over at it again, trying to gather more details. The hands. I hadn't noticed the hands before. They were resting on its lap, and they were too long. The fingers were too slender, too delicate, and there were subtle differences in the joints, as if there was one extra knuckle or the bones bent in slightly different ways than human bones should. It was wearing clothes, dark pants, dark jacket, dark shirt, all perfectly ordinary, the kind of outfit you could buy at any department store. But somehow, the clothes looked wrong on it, like a costume, like something wearing human clothing without quite understanding how humans fill out those clothes. "Are you?" I started, then stopped. How do you even ask this question? "Are you feeling okay? You look kind of, I don't know, off." Its head swiveled toward me again, and this time I caught something in its expression. Not quite emotion, but something. Calculation, maybe. Assessment. "Your concern is noted but unnecessary. My physical state is adequate for current purposes." Current purposes. What the hell did that mean? I felt panic rising in my chest like a wave. This was wrong. This was all completely wrong. I needed to get out of this car. I needed to stop and get this thing away from me. My foot moved toward the brake. And then I heard it. Not with my ears. With my mind. A voice, clear and distinct, echoing inside my skull like someone speaking directly into my brain. "Sarah Chen, do not be afraid." I screamed. I actually screamed, a sharp yelp of pure terror that filled the car. My foot slammed on the brake. The car skidded, tires squealing against asphalt. We came to a violent stop, and I was fumbling with my seatbelt, my door handle, trying to get out, to run, to escape. "What are you?" I shouted. "What the hell are you?" The being remained perfectly still in the passenger seat, unaffected by the sudden stop, those dark eyes fixed on me with what I now recognized as concern. Not human concern. Something else. "Please calm yourself. I am not here to harm you." The voice in my head was patient, measured. "I have limited time and limited options. I require your assistance. Get out. I said, my hand on the door handle. Get out of my car right now. I cannot. I am not capable of reaching my destination on foot within the required time frame. The being tilted its head again. You stopped for me. You chose to offer help. I am asking you to continue. I didn't know you were. I gestured wildly at it. Whatever you are, I thought you were a person, a human person. I am a person, Sarah Chen, simply not a human one. I felt my mind fragmenting, unable to process what was happening. This couldn't be real. This wasn't possible. Aliens didn't hitchhike on Highway 66 in Arizona. They didn't get into Honda Accords and speak telepathically and have voices that sounded tired and desperate. You are experiencing cognitive dissonance, the voice said, gentler now. Your mind is attempting to reconcile observed reality with learned understanding of what reality should be. This is normal. This is expected. I assure you, I mean you no harm. In fact, I believe our encounter is fortuitous for both of us. Fortuitous, I repeated, hearing the edge of hysteria in my voice. You think this is fortuitous? If you continue driving, if you take me to my destination, I will answer your questions. I will explain things that you have wondered about your entire life, things about consciousness, about reality, about the nature of existence itself, and about what you call God. The word hung in the air between us. God. I stared at this impossible being, this thing that violated every law of nature I understood, and despite the terror, despite every screaming instinct telling me to run, I felt something else stirring. Curiosity. The same curiosity that had made me stop in the first place. If I do this, I said slowly, if I drive you where you need to go, you'll tell me the truth about everything? I will tell you truths that have been hidden from your species for millennia. The being's eyes seemed to gleam in the darkness. But I warn you, Sarah Chen, once you know these truths, once you truly understand how reality functions, you cannot unknow them. Your life will never be the same. I sat there in the stopped car, engine still running, hands trembling on the steering wheel. The being's warning echoed in my mind. Your life will never be the same. Part of me wanted to laugh at that. My life was already a disaster. Divorced, broke, estranged from my daughter, working myself to death for barely enough to survive. What exactly did I have to lose? Fine, I heard myself say. Fine, I'll take you where you need to go. But you start talking now. No more cryptic warnings. I want the truth. What are you? I am what your species would classify as extraterrestrial. I come from a planet orbiting a star approximately 39 light-years from Earth. My people have been observing your world for several thousand of your years. The words should have sounded insane. They should have confirmed that I was having some kind of psychotic break, that the stress had finally shattered my mind completely. But something in the way the voice spoke directly into my consciousness, bypassing all the usual filters of doubt and skepticism, made me believe it. Or maybe I was just too tired to fight anymore. 39 light-years, I repeated, pulling back onto the highway. My hands were steadier now. The initial terror was giving way to something else. Numbness, maybe, or acceptance of the impossible. How did you even get here? Technology that manipulates space-time in ways your current physics does not yet understand. We do not travel through space. We fold space. Distance becomes irrelevant. But the being paused, and I sensed something like embarrassment, if such a thing could exist in an alien consciousness. Our technology, while advanced, is not infallible. My transport vessel experienced a catastrophic malfunction. I was forced to land in your desert. the vessel is damaged beyond my ability to repair alone. So you're stranded? I said. Like actually stranded. That's why you needed a ride. Correct. I have a secondary transport location approximately 40 miles from here. A backup vessel, hidden, waiting for precisely this type of emergency. But I cannot reach it on foot in time. The being's head turned to look out the window at the dark desert rushing past. My people will retrieve me, but only if I reach the designated coordinates within a specific time frame. If I miss that window, I will be trapped on your planet for considerably longer. I let that sink in. An alien. A real, actual alien from another world, sitting in my Honda Accord because its spaceship broke down. The absurdity of it would have made me laugh if I weren't so completely terrified. How long have you been here? On Earth, I mean. This specific visit, 17 of your days. But my people have maintained observation of Earth for approximately 4,200 of your years. 4,000, I whispered. You've been watching us for 4,000 years. Longer, actually, but active observation with regular visits began approximately 42 centuries ago. Your species reached a level of consciousness that warranted closer study. You began asking the right questions. You began developing the capacity for abstract thought, for contemplating existence beyond mere survival. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. And you've just been watching, observing us like we're some kind of experiment? Not an experiment, Sarah Chen. A vigil. The being's mental voice carried something I hadn't heard before. Sadness, maybe, or concern. Your species is at a critical juncture. You have been for some time. You are approaching a threshold that every intelligent species must cross. Either you awaken to your true nature and evolve beyond current limitations, or you destroy yourselves. Most species do not survive this transition. That's comforting, I said, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. So you're here to watch us fail? We are here to observe, and occasionally, when circumstances align, to assist. But we cannot interfere directly. That would violate principles you are not yet ready to understand. Free will is absolute. Choice must be genuine. We drove in silence for a few minutes. I watched the mile markers pass, counting down the distance. 32 miles to go. 31. The desert stretched endlessly on both sides, dark and empty under a sky filled with more stars than I'd ever seen in the city. And somewhere up there, this being had traveled from a world I couldn't imagine, from a distance my mind couldn't really comprehend. Why tell me any of this? I asked finally. Why not just stay quiet? Let me drop you off and disappear. Why risk telling a random human about who you are, what you're doing here? Because you asked the question, the being turned to face me fully. Because you are ready to hear the answer. Most humans are not. Most would react with violence or complete mental shutdown. But you, Sarah Chen, you are different. You have been searching for something your entire life without knowing what it is. You have felt the emptiness inside, the sense that something essential is missing from everything you were taught. The words hit me like a physical blow. How did it know? How could it possibly know about the hollow feeling I'd carried for as long as I could remember? The sense that everyone else had received some instruction manual for life that I'd never gotten. The feeling that there was supposed to be more, something deeper, something real beneath all the surface noise. You've been in my head, I said accusingly, reading my thoughts. I do not need to read your thoughts, Sarah. I can sense your energetic frequency. Your consciousness broadcasts itself like a radio signal, and your frequency is one of seeking, of questioning, of refusing to accept easy answers. This is rare. This is valuable. Great, I muttered. I'm valuable because I'm miserable and confused. You are valuable because you are ready to awaken. The being's voice grew more intense. That is what I can offer you in exchange for this assistance: information, truth, understanding of how reality actually functions, how consciousness creates experience, how what you call God is not what you have been taught. My hands tightened on the wheel. You said that before. About God. What do you mean? Everything your religions teach about God is simultaneously true and completely misunderstood. The being seemed to settle deeper into the seat. The entity you call God exists, but it is not a being. It is not separate from you. It is not judging you from some distant heaven. Would you like to know what God actually is? I thought about my Catholic childhood. The stern nuns at St. Mary's telling us about sin and judgment and hell. I thought about kneeling in confession, listing my tiny childhood transgressions, terrified of divine punishment. I thought about praying desperately during the divorce, begging God to save my marriage, to keep my family together, and I thought about the silence that followed those prayers, the absolute, crushing silence. Yes, I said, my voice barely audible. Yes, I want to know. Then drive, Sarah Chen. Continue to my destination. And I will tell you things that will dismantle everything you believe. I will show you that you have been lied to, not by your parents or teachers or priests, but by institutions that benefit from your ignorance. I will prove to you that you are not small. You are not powerless. You are not separate from the divine. You are the divine experiencing itself in physical form. The words should have sounded like madness, like the ravings of a cult leader or a con artist. But something in me recognized them. Something ancient and buried deep beneath decades of conditioning and disappointment and learned helplessness stirred at those words. Prove it, I challenged. Don't just tell me. Prove it. Watch the road ahead, the being said. In exactly 43 seconds, you will see a sign. It will display a number. Before you see it, choose a number in your mind. Any number between 1 and 100. Do not speak it aloud. Simply think it. I frowned, confused, but I did as instructed. I thought of a number, 67, random, meaningless. My eyes stayed on the road, watching for this promised sign, and exactly when the being said, a green highway sign emerged from the darkness. Mileage to various towns. And there, at the bottom, the distance to Kingman. 67 miles. My foot nearly slipped off the gas pedal. That was, I started, my voice shaking. That was just a coincidence. 67 miles to Kingman. It's just random. You couldn't have known. I knew because you created it, Sarah Chen. The being's voice was patient, almost gentle. Your consciousness reached out and arranged that reality to match your thought. I simply helped you see the mechanism you use every moment of your life without realizing it. No, I said firmly. No, that's impossible. I didn't create anything. That sign was already there. The distance to Kingman is what it is. I didn't make it 67 miles. The distance is what it is because of countless factors that led to this moment. But your consciousness chose to perceive it at this exact second, chose that number, and manifested the synchronicity. This is how reality works. This is what you have never been taught. I wanted to argue, to reject this completely, but something in me couldn't, because this wasn't the first time. How many times had I thought of someone and they called moments later? How many times had I worried about something specific and watched it materialize exactly as I feared? How many times had I needed something desperately, and it appeared in the strangest ways? "Tell me about your religious upbringing," the being said. "This is relevant to understanding what I need to explain." I took a deep breath, focusing on the road. 28 miles to go. "Catholic," I said. "Raised Catholic, St. Mary's Elementary, then an all-girls Catholic high school. Church every Sunday, confession, the whole thing. My mother was devout. My father went along with it to keep peace. And what did they teach you about God?" "The usual," I said, memories flooding back. "God is the Father. He's in heaven. He's watching us, judging us. We're all sinners because of Adam and Eve. Jesus died for our sins. We have to be good, follow the commandments, or we go to hell forever. And we have to have faith, even when it doesn't make sense, especially when it doesn't make sense." "Did you believe it?" I was quiet for a moment, thinking. As a child, yes, absolutely. I was terrified of hell. I was terrified of disappointing God. I prayed every night. I begged forgiveness for every tiny thing I did wrong. I wanted so badly to be good enough. And as you grew older? "I don't know," I said honestly. It got complicated. I had questions the nuns couldn't answer. Why does God let children suffer? Why do good people get cancer? Why did my friend's father, who never missed Mass, who was the kindest man I knew, die at 43 while horrible people lived to be 90? They'd say it's God's plan, that we can't understand His ways. But that never felt like enough. It is not enough, because those answers are designed to prevent questioning. They are designed to keep you dependent on external authority. But I kept trying, I continued, surprised by how much I wanted to talk about this. I kept praying. I kept believing. Even through college, even when science classes made religion seem less and less logical. I held on because everyone around me did. Because my mother would have been heartbroken if I didn't. Because it felt safer to believe than not to believe. And then you married. Yes. David. We met at 25, married at 27. He wasn't particularly religious, but he agreed to a church wedding for my mother. We had Emily when I was 30, and I raised her Catholic like I'd been raised. Baptism, First Communion, the whole cycle continuing. When did your faith break? The question hit hard. I felt tears burning my eyes. When my marriage fell apart, when David left me for someone from his office, when I prayed harder than I'd ever prayed in my life for God to save my family, when I begged, when I bargained, when I promised to be better, to do better, to be the perfect wife if he'd just make David stay. And there was nothing. Just silence. Just my empty house and my daughter who wouldn't look at me and divorce papers on the kitchen table. You felt abandoned. I felt stupid, I said bitterly. Stupid for believing that God cared. Stupid for thinking my prayers meant anything. Stupid for wasting 40 years of my life on something that was never there. But what if God was there, Sarah Chen? What if God was always there, but not in the way you were taught to understand? What if everything you were told about God was designed to keep you from understanding what God actually is? I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand, trying to keep the car steady. Then what is God? What is it really? God is not a being. God is consciousness itself, the field of infinite potential from which all reality emerges. You call it God, others call it Source, or Universe, or Brahman, or Tao. The name does not matter. What matters is understanding that it is not separate from you. It is not external. It is not judging you from heaven. Then what is it doing? I demanded. If it's so great, if it's so powerful, Why is there so much suffering? Why do children die? Why do good people get destroyed while evil people thrive? Because God is not controlling anything. God is experiencing everything through you, through every conscious being, through every experience, painful or joyful. The being's voice intensified. You are not a creation separate from God. You are God experiencing itself from this specific point of view, learning, growing, evolving, through every choice, every emotion, every moment. That's insane, I said. That's blasphemy. That's saying I'm God. You are not God in totality. You are a fractal expression of God. Like a wave is not the ocean, but it is made of the ocean. You carry the same essence, the same creative power, but on an individual scale. And you have been taught to fear this power, to deny it, to give it away to external authorities. I felt anger rising. I was taught that we're sinners, that we're fallen, that we need to be saved. You were taught to be powerless, to be dependent, to look outside yourself for salvation that could only come from within. This is the greatest lie ever told to humanity. Not that God exists, but that God is separate from you. Stop, I said, my head spinning. Just stop. This is too much. You're telling me everything I believed was wrong. Everything my mother believed, everyone at my church, billions of people across history, were all just wrong? Not wrong. Incomplete. The truth was simplified, distorted, weaponized to control. Jesus tried to teach this. He said the kingdom of God is within you. He said you will do greater works than I have done. He said when you pray, believe you have already received. But these teachings were buried, rewritten, turned into doctrines of external salvation. Prove it, I said again, more desperately this time. Don't just tell me. Show me something I can't explain away. Very well. The air in the car began to change. It felt charged, electric, like the moment before lightning strikes. I glanced at the being and saw it extending one long-fingered hand. The coins in my cup holder, the change from a gas station earlier, began to vibrate. Then slowly, impossibly, they lifted. 4 quarters floating in the air between us, rotating gently as if in zero gravity. I nearly drove off the road. My hands jerked the wheel, and I had to force myself to focus, to keep us on the highway, even as my mind screamed that what I was seeing was impossible. The quarters hung there for 5, 10, 15 seconds. Then they gently settled back into the cup holder. How? I whispered. How did you do that? I manipulated the energetic field, the same field that holds atoms together, that creates the illusion of solid matter. It is not difficult when you understand that matter is simply consciousness vibrating at a specific frequency. The being's hand moved again, this time toward the dashboard. The light from my speedometer began to bend, to stretch, creating rainbow patterns that swirled through the car's interior. I was crying now, full tears streaming down my face, because my worldview wasn't just cracking, it was shattering completely. The rainbow patterns faded back to normal dashboard light. I pulled over to the side of the highway, unable to drive anymore. My whole body was shaking. I put the car in park and just sat there, hands covering my face, sobbing. Not from fear anymore, from something deeper, from the collapse of every certainty I'd built my life on. I know this is difficult, the being said, and its mental voice carried genuine compassion. But you need to understand how this connects to what you were taught about Jesus, about the man your religion is built upon. I looked up, wiping my eyes. What about Jesus? We were there, Sarah Chen, my people. We observed him directly, 2,000 years ago when he walked the hills of Galilee. teaching, healing, demonstrating what human consciousness is capable of achieving. We watched him very carefully. My breath caught. You saw Jesus? The actual Jesus? Yes, and I can show you. Not just tell you, but show you what we recorded. The being's hand moved again, and the air in front of the dashboard began to shimmer. Would you like to see the truth of what he was and what he taught before it was rewritten? I couldn't speak. I could only nod. The shimmering intensified, and suddenly there was an image hanging in the air. 3-dimensional, fully detailed, as real as if I could reach out and touch it. A man in simple robes, dark hair, weathered skin from years in the sun. He was sitting on a hillside, surrounded by maybe 20 people. They were listening with complete attention as he spoke. Is that... My voice was barely a whisper. Is that really him? Holographic recording. We observed from a distance, but our technology captured everything. Light, sound, energy signatures. This is not artistic interpretation. This is documentation of what occurred. The image was so vivid I could see the individual threads in his robe, the dust on his sandals, the way his hands moved as he spoke. He was younger than I'd imagined, maybe 30, maybe 35. And there was something about his face, an intensity, a presence that came through even in this projection. What is he saying? I asked. The being was quiet for a moment, as if translating. He is telling them that the kingdom they seek is not in some distant heaven, that it is within them, accessible now, in this moment. He is trying to explain that they are not separate from God, that they carry divine power within themselves. But they struggle to understand. They have been taught for generations that God is external, distant, to be feared. The image shifted. Now Jesus was standing, his hands raised toward a man who was clearly sick, thin, pale, hunched over in pain. I watched as Jesus placed his hands on the man's head, and something happened. I could see it in the holographic recording. A light, a glow emanating from Jesus, flowing into the sick man, and the man straightened. The color returned to his face. He stood fully, healed. He really did heal people, I whispered. Yes, but not through supernatural intervention, through understanding of how consciousness affects matter, how belief creates physical reality. Jesus operated at a frequency of absolute certainty. He knew, not hoped, not believed, but knew that healing was possible. And that knowing rearranged reality to match his intention. The faith of a mustard seed, I said, remembering the verse. That's what he meant. Exactly, but not faith as your religion teaches it, not blind belief despite evidence, but certainty, knowing, operating at such a high frequency of consciousness that physical reality has no choice but to conform. The being paused. Watch this next part carefully. The hologram changed again. Jesus was speaking to his disciples in what looked like a private setting. His expression was earnest, almost pleading, as if he was trying to convey something crucial that they kept missing. He is telling them, the being translated, that they will do greater works than he has done, that everything he can do, they can do, that the power is not his alone, but belongs to all of humanity. He is begging them to understand that he is not unique. He is an example. He is showing them what they are capable of becoming. Tears were streaming down my face again. But that's not what we're taught. We're taught that Jesus was the Son of God, special, unique, that we could never be like him, because that interpretation serves those who want control. The being's voice turned harder. Watch what happened after his death. The hologram fast-forwarded. I saw Jesus on the cross. I saw the burial. I saw the resurrection. But it looked different than I'd imagined. He appeared, but there was something ethereal about him, something between dimensions. He spoke to his followers, gave final teachings, and then he was gone. And then the image shifted to years later, decades later, centuries later. I saw councils of men in elaborate robes arguing over texts. I saw scrolls being burned. I saw certain teachings being emphasized while others were buried. I saw the formation of institutions, hierarchies, power structures, all built on a version of Jesus' message that had been carefully edited. They kept the parts about him being divine, the being explained. They kept the crucifixion, the sacrifice, the external salvation, but they removed the parts about internal power. They removed his teachings that every human carries the same divine spark. They removed the instructions for how to manifest, how to heal, how to create reality through consciousness. Because people who understand their own power do not need priests. They do not need churches. They do not need intermediaries between themselves and God. They lied, I said, my voice breaking. They took what he actually taught and twisted it into a tool for control, not out of pure malice. Some genuinely believed they were preserving truth. But over time, the institution became more important than the message. Control became more valuable than liberation. And billions of humans lived and died never knowing what they truly were, never accessing the power that was their birthright. The hologram showed a final image. Jesus teaching, his hands outstretched, his face full of love and hope. And I heard his words, somehow translated directly into meaning I could understand. The kingdom of God is within you. You are the light of the world. These things I do, you shall do also, and greater things than these. He was trying to awaken us, I sobbed. He was trying to show us what we really are. And we turned it into a religion about how powerless we are, how much we need to be saved. Yes. And this is why your prayers never worked, Sarah Chen. Because you were taught to beg an external God for intervention. You were taught to humble yourself, to admit your unworthiness. Every prayer reinforced your powerlessness. When Jesus prayed before miracles, he did not beg. He gave thanks as if the outcome was already assured. He operated from certainty, from alignment with divine consciousness. He showed you the way, and then they buried it. The hologram faded. I sat in my car on the side of Highway 66 in the Arizona desert, feeling like everything I'd ever known had been ripped away. But underneath the grief, underneath the anger at what had been stolen from humanity, from me, from my mother, from everyone who'd ever prayed desperately and received only silence, underneath all of that, I felt something else, a spark, small, fragile, but undeniable. Hope, real hope, not the passive hope of waiting for someone else to save me, but the active hope of understanding that I had power I'd never been taught to use. Show me, I said, looking at the being with new eyes. Show me how to do what he did. Show me how to access what's inside me. The being's dark eyes seemed to gleam with something like satisfaction. We are almost at my destination. 13 miles remaining. That is enough time to teach you the foundation. But I warn you, once you begin to see reality as it truly is, once you begin to consciously create rather than unconsciously react, your entire life will transform. Are you certain you want this? I thought about my empty apartment, my failed marriage, my distant daughter, my decades of powerless praying, my life built on lies that kept me small and afraid and dependent. Yes, I said with absolute certainty. Teach me. I pulled back onto the highway, my hands steadier now despite everything that had just been revealed. 13 miles. 13 miles to learn something that might change everything. First, you must understand the fundamental nature of reality. The being began. Everything you see, touch, experience, it appears solid, fixed, objective. But this is an illusion. At the quantum level, at the smallest measurable scale, matter does not exist as solid particles. It exists as waves of probability, potential. And these waves collapse into particles, into concrete reality, only when they are observed. I've heard of that, I said. The observer effect, something about electrons existing in multiple places until you measure them. Correct. But your scientists have not fully grasped the implications. It is not the act of measurement that collapses the wave function. It is consciousness itself, awareness, attention. Your consciousness literally creates the reality you experience from infinite potential. I felt my mind stretching to hold this concept. So you're saying nothing is real until I look at it? Nothing is concrete until consciousness interacts with it. Before observation, everything exists as probability, as potential. Your attention, combined with expectation and emotion, selects which potential becomes your experienced reality. But I struggled for words. That's insane. The world existed before humans evolved consciousness. Dinosaurs existed. The universe existed for billions of years before anyone was here to observe it. Did it? Or did consciousness exist first, creating the appearance of a past to make sense of the present? The being's tone suggested this was a deeper question than I was ready for. But set that aside for now. What matters is understanding how your consciousness operates in the present moment. Every thought you think carries energetic frequency. Every emotion you feel amplifies that frequency. And the universe, the field of infinite potential, responds to these frequencies by manifesting matching experiences. Like attracts like, I said slowly. Precisely. When you think thoughts of scarcity, lack, fear, worry, you emit a low, dense frequency, and that frequency magnetizes experiences that match it. Financial problems, health issues, relationship conflicts, not as punishment, but as natural resonance. The universe is not moral. It is mechanical. It gives you more of whatever you focus on. I thought about my life over the past 3 years since the divorce. The constant worry about money, the fear of ending up homeless, the replaying of arguments with David, of Emily's cold silences, the certainty that nothing would ever get better. I've been creating more of what I don't want, I whispered. Every single day, every fearful thought was a prayer to the universe saying, "Give me more things to fear." Every worry was an order saying, "Bring me more problems to worry about." This is why your prayers never worked, Sarah Chen. You prayed from a frequency of lack. Please, God, I don't have enough money. That is not a prayer for abundance. That is a declaration of poverty. And the universe heard the declaration, not the desire hidden beneath it. So when Jesus said, "Whatever you ask in prayer, believe you have received it, and it will be yours," I said, the verse suddenly making new sense. He wasn't talking about faith as hope. He was talking about operating from the frequency of already having it. Exactly. He gave thanks before breaking the bread because he was not hoping the bread would multiply. He knew it would. He operated from absolute certainty. And certainty is a frequency so high, so aligned with creative source, that physical reality rearranges instantly to match it. But I can't just believe I have things I don't have, I protested. That's delusional. My bank account has $943. I can't believe it has more when it doesn't. You are thinking from current reality. You must think from desired reality, not as fantasy, but as frequency. Feel the emotion of having abundance. Feel the relief, the peace, the freedom. Your body does not know the difference between actual experience and vividly imagined experience. When you feel the emotion authentically, you emit the frequency, and the frequency is what creates. We drove in silence for a moment while I tried to absorb this. 8 miles to go. Show me, I said, like you did with the sign. Make me understand this is real. Very well. The being shifted in its seat. Think of something specific, not generic, not I want money or I want love. Something precise, a word, a symbol, a number, something that would be improbable to encounter multiple times in the next few miles. I thought hard. What would be unusual enough? Something I hadn't seen in years. Something random. And then it came to me. A white peacock, I said. I saw one once at a zoo when I was 7. I haven't thought about it in decades. Perfect. Now do not hope to see a white peacock. Do not wish for it. Instead, feel grateful that you have already seen it. Feel the wonder you felt as a child. Feel it as if it already happened. The being's voice was firm. This is crucial. You must emit the frequency of having, not wanting. I closed my eyes for just a second, then opened them to watch the road. I tried to remember that feeling. 7 years old, holding my father's hand at the San Diego Zoo, seeing that incredible bird, pure white, tail feathers spread in full display, the awe, the pure joy of witnessing something so beautiful. I let that feeling wash over me, gratitude for having seen something so rare and magnificent. Good, the being said. Now release it. Do not obsess. Do not watch for it desperately. Just let the frequency do its work. We drove 6 miles, 5 miles. I'd almost forgotten about the exercise when my radio, which had been off, suddenly turned on by itself. Static at first, then a voice, a commercial. Visit the Paradise Wildlife Sanctuary, where you can see exotic animals including our rare albino peacocks. My hands jerked on the wheel. Did you do that? I did nothing. You did. Your consciousness reached out and found a matching frequency. The being sounded pleased. But watch. It will not be just once. 3 miles later, as we approached the turnoff the being had mentioned, a pickup truck passed us going the opposite direction. And there, on the side of the truck bed, was a decal, a white peacock with tail feathers spread. No, I breathed. That can't be. 2 miles. A billboard emerged from the darkness, advertising a local art gallery. The main image was a painting, a white peacock in a garden. I pulled over again, this time at the dirt road turnoff. My whole body was shaking. 3 times. 3 separate manifestations of something I hadn't thought about in 35 years. Something impossibly specific. I did that, I whispered. I actually created that. You selected those probabilities from infinite potential. They were always possible. Your consciousness, operating at the right frequency, made them actual. The being gestured down the dark dirt road. My destination is 1.3 miles down this path. As we drive, understand this. You have been doing this your entire life. Every experience you have ever had, you magnetized through your dominant frequency. The difference now is awareness. Conscious creation versus unconscious reaction. I turned onto the dirt road, driving slowly over the rough terrain. My mind was reeling. Every financial struggle, every relationship failure, every health problem. I'd been unconsciously creating all of it through decades of fearful, lack-based thinking. The people who succeed, I said slowly, the ones who seem to have everything, they're operating at a different frequency. Consciously or unconsciously, yes. Some humans naturally think abundantly. They expect good things. They feel deserving. They operate from certainty rather than hope, and their lives reflect that frequency. This is not divine favor. This is universal law. And Jesus understood this perfectly, I said, everything clicking into place. That's why he could heal, multiply food, walk on water. He operated at such a high frequency of certainty that physical reality had no choice but to conform. Now you begin to understand. The being's voice carried approval. And this is what was taken from you, the knowledge that you are a creator, not a victim, that your thoughts and emotions are the most powerful forces in your life, that God is not external authority to be pleased, but internal power to be accessed. We continued down the dark road, and ahead I could see something reflecting in my headlights, something metallic, partially hidden behind desert rocks and scrub brush. The being's ship, I realized, its backup transport home. But I wasn't thinking about saying goodbye yet. I was thinking about my daughter Emily, about decades of strained relationship, of failed connection. And I was wondering, with growing certainty, if I could change that, if I could emit a different frequency and watch reality shift to match it. Can I heal my relationship with my daughter? I asked. Using this? You can create the conditions that allow healing. You cannot control another's consciousness, but you can transform your own. And when you change your frequency, the people in your life respond to that change, often dramatically. The ship was closer now, maybe 200 yards ahead. I slowed the car to a stop about 50 yards from the ship. In my headlights, I could see it clearly now. It wasn't large, maybe the size of a small RV, but the shape was unlike anything human-made. Smooth, organic curves that seemed to shift slightly in the light, as if the surface were liquid metal that had frozen mid-flow. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once. Before you go, I said, turning to face the being, I need to understand something. Why? Why does Earth exist? Why are humans here? If we're just creating our own reality through consciousness, what's the point of any of this? The being was silent for a moment, and I sensed it was choosing words carefully, translating concepts that might not have direct human equivalents. You are not accidents, Sarah Chen. You are not mistakes. You are not fallen creatures in need of redemption. You are consciousness experiencing itself in physical form. You are the universe waking up to its own existence. I don't understand, I said. If God, or Source, or whatever we call it, is already conscious, already infinite, why create us? Why create anything? Because consciousness seeks to know itself through experience. Imagine being everything simultaneously, being all possibilities at once. There is no contrast, no perspective, no growth or discovery. So infinite consciousness fragments itself into individual points of awareness. Each point believes itself separate, experiences limitation, struggles, grows, evolves. And through each individual experience, the whole expands. I felt something shift deep in my chest. So we're like God's way of experiencing what it's like to not be God. Beautifully stated. You are Source exploring what it means to have boundaries, to feel fear, to overcome obstacles, to love despite the possibility of loss. Every emotion you feel, every challenge you face, every triumph and failure, These are experiences the infinite cannot have while remaining infinite. So it becomes finite. It becomes you. It becomes all of us. Then we're not being punished, I whispered. Life isn't a test. We're not here to prove we're worthy of heaven. You are here to experience, to grow, to create, to expand consciousness itself. The being's voice grew more intense, and when your physical form ends, your individual awareness returns to the whole, carrying everything you learned, everything you became, and Source is enriched by your unique perspective. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is lost. Every experience has value. I thought about my mother, who died believing she was a sinner, hoping God would accept her. I thought about Martha, the pastor's wife from the other story the being had referenced, dying afraid she wasn't saved. How many billions had lived and died in fear, never knowing they were already divine, already whole, already exactly what they were meant to be. Your species, I said. Did you go through this? Did you have religions that taught you to be afraid? Yes. Thousands of years ago, we were much like you are now. The being looked out at its ship, and I sensed something like nostalgia in its consciousness. We fought wars over competing beliefs about the nature of reality. We built institutions of control disguised as spiritual guidance. We lived in fear of divine judgment, and we came very close to destroying ourselves entirely. What changed? A critical mass awakened. Not everyone, not even most, but enough individuals began to remember their true nature, began to access their creative power, began to operate from unity consciousness rather than separation consciousness. And once that threshold was crossed, the transformation accelerated. Within 2 generations, our entire civilization had evolved beyond the need for external authority, beyond scarcity-based thinking, beyond fear as a primary motivator. 2 generations, I repeated. That's what, 40 or 50 years? For your species, yes, but it requires reaching critical mass first. Currently, you are approaching that threshold. Millions of humans across your planet are waking up, questioning old paradigms, seeking deeper truth. This is why my people maintain our vigil. This is why we observe, because you are at the same precipice we once faced. A chill ran down my spine. And if we don't reach critical mass, if not enough people wake up, then you will likely destroy yourselves through environmental collapse, through warfare, through technologies you develop without the wisdom to use them responsibly. This is the filter that most species fail to pass through. The transition from separation consciousness to unity consciousness is the most dangerous phase of evolution. The weight of that settled over me. I thought about climate change, about nuclear weapons, about artificial intelligence developing faster than our ability to control it, about political divisions growing more extreme, about people retreating into smaller and smaller bubbles of certainty, unable to hear each other anymore. How much time do we have? I asked. In your years, perhaps 20, perhaps 30. The timeline is not fixed. It depends on how quickly awakening spreads. How many choose consciousness over unconsciousness, unity over separation? The being turned to face me fully. This is why our encounter matters, Sarah Chen. This is why I tell you these truths. But I'm nobody, I protested. I'm just a divorced accountant in Arizona. I have no influence, no platform, no way to reach masses of people. Why not reveal yourself to world leaders? To scientists, to people who actually have power to change things. Because awakening does not happen from the top down. It happens person by person, heart by heart, consciousness by consciousness. The being's voice was firm. World leaders are typically the most invested in current power structures. They have the most to lose from humanity awakening to its true nature. They are the least likely to change. Then who does change? I asked. Who are these millions waking up? People like you. People who have been broken by the current system. People whose prayers were not answered because they were praying wrong. People who felt the emptiness inside despite doing everything they were told to do. People who are tired enough, desperate enough, honest enough to admit that what they were taught is not working. I felt tears starting again. The broken ones, the failures, the ones at the bottom, the ones who have nothing left to defend. Yes, you cannot fill a cup that is already full. You cannot teach someone who believes they already know, but someone who has lost everything, someone who has hit bottom, someone who is finally willing to admit they do not have the answers. That person is ready to learn. That person can awaken. And when they do, when I do, what happens then? You become a beacon, not through preaching or convincing, but simply through being. Your frequency shifts, your life transforms. People notice, they ask questions, and when they are ready, when they have been broken open enough to receive, you share what you know, one conversation at a time, one awakening sparking another. This is how critical mass is reached. I looked at my hands on the steering wheel. 42 years old, failed marriage, estranged daughter, struggling financially, no religious faith left, nothing and no one to fall back on. And somehow, according to this being from another world, that made me perfect. That made me ready. I'm scared, I admitted. What if I try this and it doesn't work? What if I can't maintain the frequency? What if I'm not strong enough? You have already manifested 3 white peacocks in 5 miles, Sarah Chen. You have already demonstrated that you can consciously create reality. The being reached out slowly, giving me time to pull back if I wanted, and placed one long-fingered hand on my shoulder. The touch was warm, gentle. You are stronger than you know, and you are not alone. Millions are waking up simultaneously, all over your planet. You will find each other. You will support each other. This is how species evolve. The ship behind us began to glow softly, responding to the being's proximity. It was time. Time for it to leave, to return to its world, to continue observing and waiting to see if humanity would pass through the filter or fail. Will I see you again? I asked. If you truly master what I have taught you, if you awaken fully to your creative power, then yes, consciousness at high enough frequency can communicate across vast distances. We will be watching, Sarah Chen. We will be hoping you succeed, because your species has such potential, such beauty. It would be a profound loss if you destroyed yourselves before reaching it. The being opened the car door, preparing to leave, but I had one more question. What do I do tomorrow? When I wake up back in my normal life, how do I start? Choose differently, think differently, feel differently. Every moment is a new opportunity to emit a new frequency. The being stepped out of the car, then leaned back in. And remember, you are not trying to become something you are not. You are remembering what you have always been. You are God experiencing itself as Sarah Chen. Act accordingly. The being stood there beside my car, the desert wind moving through the darkness around us. The ship glowed softly in the background, waiting. But instead of walking toward it, the being paused, those dark eyes studying me with an intensity that made me feel completely transparent. Before I leave, Sarah Chen, I need to show you something. Something specific about your energy field, and how it has created the life you currently experience. My energy field? I asked. Like an aura? Yes. Every living being emits an electromagnetic signature based on their dominant thoughts and emotions. With your permission, I would like to make yours visible to you, so you can see exactly what frequency you have been broadcasting. I hesitated. Part of me didn't want to see, didn't want confirmation of what I suspected was a dark, heavy, miserable frequency. But I'd come this far. Okay, I said quietly. Show me. The being raised both hands, and the air around me began to shimmer, and then I could see it. A field of energy surrounding my body, extending maybe 2 feet in all directions. But it wasn't the bright, clear colors I'd seen in pictures of auras. It was dark, gray and brown with streaks of muddy red, heavy, dense, like smoke that couldn't quite dissipate. Oh God, I whispered, seeing myself truly for the first time. It's so dark. This is what 42 years of fear-based thinking looks like. The being's voice was gentle, not judgmental. See the brown? That is chronic worry about money, about survival. The gray is depression, feeling powerless, believing life happens to you rather than through you. The red is old anger, at your ex-husband, at your daughter, at yourself for failing. Tears streamed down my face. I did this. I created this. Yes, but not to punish you with this truth, to empower you with it. Because if you created this frequency through unconscious thinking, you can create a different frequency through conscious choice. Right now, in this moment. How? I asked desperately. How do I change something I've been building for 42 years? One thought at a time, one emotion at a time. The being moved closer. I am going to guide you through a process. It will feel strange at first, possibly false, but if you commit to it fully, you will feel the shift immediately. Are you willing? Yes, I said without hesitation. Please, yes. Close your eyes. The being's voice became soothing, almost hypnotic. I want you to think about your financial situation, your bank account with $943, your credit card debt, your fear of not having enough. Feel it fully. Do not hide from it. I did. I felt the familiar knot in my stomach, the anxiety that woke me at 3 a.m, the shame of having to budget every single purchase, the terror of unexpected expenses. My chest tightened, my breathing became shallow. Now stop. The being's voice cut through the spiral. Open your eyes and look at your energy field. I opened my eyes. The dark colors had intensified. The brown was almost black now. The field looked heavier, denser, like it was collapsing in on itself. That's what happens every time you worry about money, the being explained. You emit that frequency, and the universe, responding to that frequency, sends you more experiences that match it, more unexpected bills, more financial stress, not as punishment, as resonance. You are quite literally ordering more scarcity every time you focus on not having enough. But I do not have enough, I protested. That's not imaginary. That's real. It is your current reality. But current reality is the result of past thinking. If you want a different future reality, you must think from that desired reality now. Close your eyes again. I did. Now I want you to imagine your bank account has $10,000 in it. Not hope it does. Not wish it did. Imagine it does. See the numbers. Feel what it would feel like to log into your account and see that balance. I tried, but immediately my mind rejected it. It feels like lying, I said. Like make-believe. Because you are thinking from current reality. You must feel from desired reality. The being's voice was patient. Let me help you. Instead of trying to believe the money is there, simply feel grateful for financial ease. Remember a time when you were not worried about money. Any time. Even as a child. I thought back. My parents weren't wealthy, but I never worried about money as a kid. I just assumed there would always be food, clothes, a place to live. There was an ease to that, a safety. I reached for that feeling, that sense of security, of knowing needs would be met. Good. Feel that, not as memory, as present reality. Feel financially secure right now, not because you have $10,000, but because you operate from a frequency of sufficiency, of enough, of trust. The feeling was faint at first, fragile, but as I stayed with it, breathed into it, it grew stronger. My chest loosened, my breathing deepened, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Just simple, quiet peace about money. Now open your eyes. I did, and gasped. The brown in my energy field was lighter. Not gone, but definitely lighter. There were streaks of green appearing, like new growth pushing through dead soil. You just changed your frequency, the being said, in less than 3 minutes. Imagine what you could do with daily practice, with consistent choice. It's possible, I whispered, staring at the visible proof. It's actually possible to change this. Now do it again. Think about your daughter, about Emily. Feel the pain of that separation. I didn't want to, but I did. I thought about her not returning my calls, about the distance between us, about how I'd failed as a mother. The energy field darkened again, the muddy red intensifying. Stop. Now choose differently. Instead of focusing on the separation, feel gratitude for connection, not future connection, present connection. Feel love for her regardless of whether she returns it right now. Feel appreciation for her existence, for the 23 years you had with her before the divorce. Feel it as fully as you felt the pain. This was harder. The pain wanted to dominate. But I pushed past it. I thought about Emily as a baby, as a toddler taking her first steps, as a 10-year-old girl showing me drawings she'd made. The love I felt for her had never actually gone away. It had just gotten buried under hurt and fear. I let myself feel that love, pure, unconditional, asking nothing in return. Warmth spread through my chest, real physical warmth, like someone had turned on a heater inside my rib cage, and with it came something unexpected. Joy, just pure joy that she existed in the world, that I'd had the privilege of being her mother, regardless of our current relationship. Look, my energy field was glowing, actually glowing. The muddy red was transforming into soft pink. The gray was lifting, becoming lighter. There was even a hint of gold appearing near my heart. I can feel it, I said, amazed. I can actually feel the difference in my body. Warmth, tingling, like something blocked is finally flowing. That is your natural state, Sarah Chen. That is who you are beneath the layers of fear-based conditioning. The being's voice carried something like pride, and you can return to this state any time you choose. It is not about circumstances changing first. It is about frequency changing first. Then circumstances follow. I sat there, feeling more alive, more real, more myself than I had in decades, maybe ever. This is what Jesus felt like, I said softly, operating at this frequency all the time. This is why he could perform miracles. Yes, and you can too. Not instantly, not at first. But with practice, with dedication, with choosing this frequency repeatedly until it becomes your default, you will watch your entire life transform. Money will flow more easily. Relationships will heal. Health will improve. Not through magic, but through natural law. Frequency creates reality. For the first time in 3 years, since David had left, since my world had collapsed, I felt genuine hope. Not the desperate hope of please let things get better, but the certain hope of I can create better. I have that power. I've always had it. I need to go now, the being said, gesturing toward the glowing ship. My window for departure is closing. But before I leave, I have something for you. I stepped out of the car, my legs shaky from everything that had happened. The desert air was cold, probably 40 degrees, and the sky above was so clear I could see the Milky Way stretching like a river of light. The being walked toward its ship, and I followed, my heart pounding with a mixture of emotions I couldn't name. Up close, the ship was even more extraordinary. The surface seemed to ripple slightly, as if it were breathing. Colors shifted across it, purples and blues and silvers that shouldn't exist together, but somehow created a harmony that was almost musical. There were no visible seams, no doors or windows that I could identify. It looked grown rather than built, organic technology far beyond anything human. "It's beautiful," I whispered. "It is alive, in a sense." The being placed one hand on the surface, and the ship responded, glowing brighter where it was touched. Consciousness integrated with matter. Your species will develop this technology eventually, if you survive the transition you are currently in. The being reached into a section of the ship that suddenly became transparent, like looking through water. It withdrew something small, maybe the size of a large marble. In the light from the ship, I could see it was a crystal, but unlike any crystal I'd ever seen. It glowed from within with a soft blue-white light, and it seemed to pulse gently, like a heartbeat. "What is that?" I asked. "A tool." The being placed it in my palm. It was warm, almost hot, and the moment it touched my skin, I felt energy surge up my arm. This crystal is programmed to help you maintain high frequency until your own consciousness is strong enough to do so without assistance. It is a bridge between where you are now and where you need to be. I stared at the crystal, feeling it pulse against my palm. "How do I use it?" "Every morning when you wake, before you do anything else, hold this in your left hand. The left hand is receptive. Close your eyes and spend 5 minutes feeling gratitude for what you wish to manifest as if it already exists. The crystal will amplify your frequency, making it easier to generate authentic emotion. Do this every morning without fail." "Just 5 minutes?" I asked. 5 minutes of pure, focused, high-frequency emotion is more powerful than 5 hours of scattered, doubtful thinking. The being's voice was firm. Quality over quantity, intensity over duration. And throughout the day, whenever you catch yourself falling into old patterns of worry or fear or lack, touch the crystal. Hold it for 30 seconds. It will remind your body what the higher frequency feels like. I closed my fingers around the crystal. What if I lose it? What if something happens to it? Then you will have already internalized its lessons and will not need it anymore. The being tilted its head in that curious way. "This is not a permanent crutch, Sarah Chen. It is a training tool. Within 6 months, perhaps a year, your natural frequency will be high enough that the crystal becomes unnecessary. But until then, use it daily." 6 months, I repeated. That's not very long to undo 42 years of conditioning. Which is why you must be vigilant. Old patterns have momentum. They are neural pathways that have been reinforced thousands of times. They will try to reassert themselves. The being placed both hands on my shoulders, holding my gaze with those infinite dark eyes. Every morning, you will wake up and your first thoughts will be the old ones. Worry about bills, resentment about the divorce, fear about Emily. These thoughts will feel automatic, natural, true. You must recognize them as programming and choose differently. What if I can't? I asked, feeling the weight of the challenge. What if I slip back? You will slip back, many times at first. This is expected. The being's voice was gentle, but each time you notice and choose again, you strengthen the new pathways. Each time you catch a negative thought and replace it with a higher frequency one, you weaken the old programming. Within 3 months, if you practice daily, the new patterns will begin to feel natural. Within 6 months, they will be your default. I thought about my morning routine. Wake up, immediately check my phone for messages from Emily that never came. Lie there worrying about money. Drag myself to the shower feeling defeated before the day even started. I'll have to completely change how I wake up. Yes, and how you speak to yourself throughout the day. The being released my shoulders and stepped back toward the ship. Notice how you talk to yourself, Sarah Chen. Most humans speak to themselves with a cruelty they would never direct at another person. I'm so stupid. I always mess everything up. Nothing ever works for me. These statements are not observations. They are commands. They are prayers to the universe saying, make me stupid, make me mess up, make nothing work. I felt shame wash over me as I recognized how often I said exactly those things to myself. Daily, hourly. Replace them. When you catch yourself saying, I always fail, stop immediately and say, I am learning and growing stronger. When you catch yourself thinking, I'll never have enough money, replace it with, money flows to me easily. Even if you do not believe it yet, say it anyway. You are reprogramming yourself at the neural level. The ship behind the being began to pulse more intensely. A sound started, not quite sound, more like a vibration I felt in my bones. Time was running out. I'm scared, I admitted. I'm scared I'll forget all of this, that I'll wake up tomorrow and think this was all a dream or a breakdown. The crystal will remind you. The being moved toward an opening that appeared in the ship's surface. And when you begin manifesting changes, when synchronicities increase, when your life starts to shift in ways that cannot be explained by coincidence, you will have proof. Trust the process, Sarah Chen. The being paused at the entrance to the ship, turning back one final time. Remember, Jesus said to his followers, "You will do greater works than I have done." He was not exaggerating. He was stating fact. You have the same creative power within you. The only difference is that he knew it completely, and you are just beginning to remember. But the potential is identical. You are source consciousness having a human experience. Act like it. And then the being was inside the ship, the opening sealed seamlessly, leaving no trace it had ever existed. The pulsing intensified. The glow became almost blinding. I stepped back toward my car, shielding my eyes. The sound, or vibration, or whatever it was, crescendoed. And then, in an instant that made my brain hurt trying to process it, the ship simply wasn't there anymore. It didn't fly up. It didn't zoom away. It just stopped existing in this location, as if it had stepped sideways out of reality. I stood alone in the dark desert, the crystal warm in my hand, the cold wind cutting through my jacket. My car's headlights were the only light source now. Above me, the stars looked different. Not physically different, but different in meaning. Each one potentially held worlds with beings like the one I'd just met. Each one represented possibilities beyond anything humans had imagined. I looked down at the glowing crystal in my palm, and I made a decision. I would do this. I would practice. I would reprogram my thoughts, raise my frequency, consciously create rather than unconsciously react. Not because I completely believed it would work, but because what I'd been doing for 42 years definitely hadn't worked, and I had nothing left to lose. I got back in my car and began the long drive home. But I wasn't the same person who'd started this journey hours ago. Something fundamental had shifted, and there was no going back. The drive home that night took forever, not because of the distance, but because my mind couldn't stop racing. Every few minutes I'd look at the crystal sitting in my cup holder, glowing softly in the darkness, and wonder if I'd actually lost my mind. But then I'd remember the white peacocks, the coins levitating, the hologram of Jesus, my energy field visible and shifting, and I'd know, with a certainty I couldn't explain, that it had all been real. I got home at 6:30 in the morning, just as the sun was rising over Phoenix. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I sat on my tiny apartment balcony, holding the crystal, watching the city wake up, and I made a commitment. Every morning, 5 minutes. No matter what, I would do this. That was 3 months ago. And I need to tell you what happened next, because if you're watching this, if you've stayed with this story all the way to the end, you need to know that everything I'm about to describe is real, documented, verifiable. My life didn't just improve, it transformed completely. The first week was hard. Every morning I'd wake up and the old thoughts would flood in immediately. Bills, Emily's silence, David's betrayal, the fear that I'd be alone and broke forever. But I'd reach for the crystal, hold it in my left hand, and force myself to feel gratitude for what I wanted as if I already had it. Financial ease, connection with my daughter, health, peace. The first few days, it felt completely fake, like I was lying to myself. But I kept going anyway. Day 8, something shifted. I was holding the crystal, trying to feel grateful for financial abundance, when suddenly, the feeling became real, genuine. I felt it in my body, warm and certain and true. And that afternoon, I got an email. A former client I'd worked with 5 years ago, someone I'd completely forgotten about, reached out. Their company was expanding. They needed a senior accountant. Was I interested? The pay was $32,000 more than I was currently making. I stared at that email for 10 minutes, my hands shaking. It couldn't be coincidence. It was too specific, too perfectly timed. I accepted the position. 2 weeks later, I started. And the difference wasn't just the money, though, that was life-changing. It was the people, the environment. Everything about it felt aligned, easy, right, like the universe had arranged it specifically for me. Week 5, I was practicing gratitude for connection with Emily. I wasn't asking her to call me. I wasn't thinking about the distance between us. I was just feeling love for her, appreciation that she existed, gratitude for the relationship we'd had and the relationship I knew we could have again. That night, my phone rang. It was her. She'd been in therapy, she said, working through the divorce, understanding how it had affected her. She was sorry for shutting me out. Could we have coffee? We met 3 days later. I didn't try to explain what had happened to me, what I'd learned. I just showed up differently, calmer, more present. without the desperate need for her approval that had always pushed her away. We talked for 2 hours, really talked, and at the end, she hugged me. A real hug, not the stiff, obligatory kind. "I missed you, Mom," she whispered, and I felt something in my chest that had been frozen for 3 years finally thaw. Month 2, I noticed physical changes. I'd been carrying an extra 30 pounds since the divorce, weight that wouldn't budge no matter what I tried. But I wasn't trying anymore. I wasn't dieting or forcing myself to exercise. I was just operating at a higher frequency, feeling better, choosing better, and the weight started falling off naturally. 10 pounds, 15, 20. My back pain, which had been constant for years, disappeared. My sleep improved. My skin cleared up. I looked in the mirror one morning and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked younger, lighter, alive. But here's what I need you to understand. The external changes, as dramatic as they were, weren't the most important part. The most important change was internal. I have peace now. Real peace. Not the fragile kind that depends on circumstances being okay, but deep, unshakable peace that comes from knowing who I really am, from understanding that I'm not a victim of life. I'm a creator of life. That changes everything. People started noticing. Coworkers would ask me what was different. Friends I hadn't heard from in years would reach out, saying they didn't know why, but they felt drawn to contact me. And when they asked what changed, I didn't preach. I didn't try to convince them of anything. I just shared my experience. I told them about the being, about what I learned, about the practice I'd been doing. Some thought I was crazy. That was okay. But others, the ones who were ready, the ones who'd been broken open by life the way I had been, they listened. They tried it. And I watched their lives begin to shift too. This is how awakening spreads. Not through massive revelations from the sky, not through world leaders suddenly announcing the truth, but person by person, one conversation at a time. Someone ready meets someone awakened, and the spark jumps. And now it's jumping to you, because you're here. You've watched this entire story, and something in you recognized the truth of it, even if your logical mind is fighting it. That's okay. The fight is normal. I fought it too. But you can't unknow what you now know. You can't unhear what you've heard. The seed has been planted. The question is, will you water it? Millions of people across the planet are waking up right now, not knowing each other, not coordinating, just responding to the same call. The same inner knowing that there's more to reality than we've been taught, that we have power we've never been told about, that God is not distant, but intimate, that we are not fallen, but divine, that Jesus wasn't showing us what he alone could do, but what all of us can do. This is the return the being talked about, not one man coming down from heaven, but consciousness awakening within millions of hearts simultaneously. And you're part of it now. Whether you choose to actively participate or not, you're part of it, because you heard this story, because something in you was ready to hear it. So, here's what I'm asking you to do. Subscribe to this channel right now. Turn on notifications. Because this story, what happened to me on Highway 66, this is just the beginning. There are more truths to share, more techniques to teach, more evidence that reality is not what we've been told. You deserve to know all of it. And in the comments, tell me your story. Tell me where you are in your awakening journey. Tell me what in this story resonated with you. Because we're building something here. A community of people who refuse to accept the old lies, who are willing to question everything who are ready to remember who they really are. The being told me that humanity is at a critical point, that we have maybe 20 or 30 years to reach the critical mass needed for transformation. That means we don't have time to waste. Every person who awakens matters. Every person who chooses consciousness over unconsciousness, unity over separation, love over fear, every single one contributes to reaching that threshold. You are not here by accident. You didn't find this video randomly. Your consciousness drew you here because you're ready for what comes next. The question is, what will you do with what you now know? Start tomorrow morning. 5 minutes. Feel gratitude for what you want as if you already have it. Notice your thoughts throughout the day. Catch the negative ones. Replace them. Watch what happens. Document it. Share it. Help others wake up. This is how we save our species. Not through one savior descending from heaven, but through millions of us awakening to the Savior within. The Christ consciousness that Jesus demonstrated. The creative power that's been buried under centuries of lies designed to keep us small and afraid and dependent. You are God experiencing itself as you. Act like it, create like it, love like it, and watch your entire world transform. I gave an alien a ride home, and what he told me about God changed everything I believed. Now I'm sharing it with you, not to convince you, but to remind you of what you've always known deep down. You are more powerful than you've been told. You are more divine than you've been taught. You are more free than you've ever imagined. Welcome to your awakening. Let's do this together.